and it used to be two tower machines, and you had the network card, and you had an RJ45, and you connected the two, and two people would play on either side, and it was. It's a far cry from historically what gaming used to be, multiplayer gaming and interactive gaming and so on and so forth.
Before it was all about programming and logic. Now it's all about how this artificial intelligence adapts and then gives a better experience to these players based on how they are playing.
The big trend that's happening is that it's more accessible, and you're having more of the smaller studios able to actually create viable products that are playable.
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Welcome one and all to another Community Talks with HAQQ Network. We have some esteemed guests with us today, and we're very privileged to have them here. I think it has been some time since our last live broadcast. We're going to make this a little more regular. And for the first one, for a long time, we have with us Peter Tomala from World Player League. Hi, Peter.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course, anytime. And Faizy from Astra Nova. Faizy, how you doing?
Hey, thanks for having me, Hassan. It's a pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. The pleasure is all mine, my friend. The pleasure is all mine. Right. So I don't do sort of long-winded introductions and everything else. So why don't we get right into it? We'll start with Astra Nova just because Astra starts with A and I love the alphabet. And then we'll go over to Peter. So Faizy, do you want to start us off with a brief introduction to yourself and Astra Nova and what it does, etc.?
I've been in the industry since 2015, quite early as a miner, and from the Web2 side of stuff, coming from a background of TradFi and EdTech. So I really like counseling and educating young students towards universities and stuff. And me and my partner, we saw an opportunity in the sector of blockchain being utilized for entertainment, for the multimedia, for various sorts of games to be produced. And we believe that the transparency layer, which blockchain enables, and at the same time, the vast potential of AI, which can further augment these games. That's the kind of vision that we saw when we started Astra back in 2020. So Astra Nova is an AI entertainment ecosystem, which has pretty much is a multimedia company with various forms of product offerings, which ranges from an action RPG, which we've been building, to a casual game on platforms like Telegram, which even spans towards mainstream entertainment medias like Webtoons with our recent NovaToons launch. And at the moment, we're working on a very important revenue potential product offering of ours, which is an AI gaming platform, which is also under the Astra Nova umbrella, which will be rolled out in the coming months. So, yeah, we're looking forward to onboarding as many users as possible, even though we're based in Saudi Arabia. We have a global presence, and we're looking forward to onboard as many users as possible for mass onboarding for Web3 adoption.
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. I love what you said earlier about the educational aspect, because I do think there is still sort of a degree of education that's required in this space to sort of elaborate on certain points. And I'm sure at various points, we'll be sharing thoughts and ideas and, concepts during the time we run this podcast for. So very excited. And, needless to say, like most people, I spent a lot of my youth playing various games, whether that's, RTS or RPG or whatever else. So really, really excited to obviously embark on this space with you. Peter, over to you. Do you want to give us a bit of a background on yourself and World Player League?
Yeah, Buzz got me beat by a couple of years. I got involved in 2017. So as a couple OGs in the space, or I guess people we've been involved for a while. Been involved in a number of different sides of blockchain, since then. Founded WPL, so World Play League, back in 2022. again, very focused on the gaming side, so very pertinent to the conversation today. World's first player-owned game platform. So really into the ownership model and a more that DAO structure, not to get into the weeds, but very ownership-based. And then one of our niches that we still believe in, even though it's been a longer road than we would have liked, is the physical component, the RWA component, right, of taking things that are happening in real life, and then also matching that, merging it digitally as well. So working with a lot of different types of card games, board games, sport games, that type of thing that can be played in person or online. And I think since we've got started, we probably worked with about 30 plus Web3 games. It's somewhere in between 3.5 million players within the ecosystem that we've been associated with. And I think we're just continued to be excited about the future, which is a combination of AI technology, of real world assets, of data and analytics, and mixing that all in within ownership. Obviously we're still very optimistic and bullish about the future. We see a lot of great games that have been developed. We see more of them. So I'm sure we'll talk about that. But yeah, it's been a fun journey, and we're really excited to be a part of it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, there's, like you say, there's Web3 has the ability to change the way we perceive games, ownership, how we interact with things as well. It's very exciting. I cast my mind back to sort of when we first started multiplayer games, quote unquote, and it used to be 2 tower machines, and you had the network card, and you had an RJ45, and you connected the two, and 2 people would play on either side, and it was. It's a far cry from historically what gaming used to be, multiplayer gaming and interactive gaming and so on and so forth. But gents, I think you've both touched on something quite interesting. AI, artificial intelligence, it's a buzzword at the moment. Anyone and everyone is talking about AI. So I think like a good place to start would be what your views are on AI, and in particular AI, how that can impact gaming going forwards, because you've both referenced it, and I completely agree. I think it has enormous potential, whether that's in gaming, whether that's in economics, whether that's general finance, social finance, social whatever. But specifically with regards to gaming, and specifically with regards to Astra Nova and World Play League, how do you see artificial intelligence interacting with your projects? And that's open, whoever wants to go first, by all means.
Yeah, I can go ahead. I can start. I think it's helpful. I think to pretext it a little bit with AI, right? It is the buzzword. It's what everyone wants to talk about. It's in every industry, and so obviously gaming is infected by and impacted by it. But it's what is it, right? It's taking calls and responses from large data sets, right? It's what it is. It's taking large amounts of data, and how can we make this more impactful and more meaningful? From writing your essay at school for you, or doing research. But then in gaming, in terms of the application, there are a lot of things. I mean, the beginning starts of gaming still had kind of the component of AI, right? When I started, it was, Nintendo's kind of, of the worlds. And you would play against the computer, right? You play against this bot. And, so as that continues to evolve, and we've seen it come in many different forms, AI, in a very easy answer, is that. It's the tactics that you play against. It's figuring out the right types of matching. Those have all kind of existed in the traditional gaming space already, right? And it's just making those smarter and, I would say, more personalized to the players, right? Where you're having this make more sense to you in terms of your playing ability, who you're playing against, but also how you're improving as a player, depending on if you're going against, the bot, the computer within the system, or someone else. But I think, and this could turn into a very long answer, but I'll keep it more condensed, which is that like where this can go and where it's evolving to, I think is the most exciting part, which, there's so many things that it could happen within it. But, in terms of how the games are actually created, right? How we're understanding player behaviors. We're big into analytics on our side. So for the gaming, for the developers, it's one thing, right? For developer side, it's understanding what are the players experiencing? Where are my drop-offs? What are where are people falling off in different types of levels? The assets that they're gaining or being rewarded with, those types of things. How are we looking at retention and player behavior? But on the gamer side, it could be far more of an impactful, meaning what's going on with how worlds are even created. What is my role within this world, right? If you're looking at mass multiplayer types of events, or just individual experiences of how do I become a better player? What type of game am I actually playing within the game? Those types of things where whole worlds, whole experiences can be created. And then you're more immersed into that environment because, again, that technology, that bot, that AI, whatever you want to say, is learning with you, is getting smarter, and it's providing you better content and better experiences. So it could go so many different directions, but AI is ultimately playing a fundamental part in how gaming, is experienced on both sides.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's interesting you should say that because as I was preparing for this podcast, I was thinking, what is AI? And if I cast my mind back, going all the way back to, Pro Evolution Soccer or, whatever games. I mean, I was always a Pro Evolution Soccer and FIFA fan as well. I used to play all the time. I used to pick the team and you selected easy, medium, difficult, hard, so on and so forth. Or just pick any game. And it was, the computer would make moves and react to how you were playing and so on and so forth. So it's always been in existence. I guess what you're saying is quite right. There's a refinement to that, and without a doubt, there's also a sort of development to that as well. So it's very exciting to see how how the lens is being focused in the modern day to what is AI and where we're going to go. Faizy, what's your thoughts on this?
So, yeah, I think AI needs blockchain more than blockchain needs AI because of how these sectors are evolving. Um, I think like Web3, the blockchain, the transparency has been laid out since the Bitcoin revolution. And I think that with the further progression of AI, especially with aspects like AI agents, you know, Web3 and all these blockchain payment providers and stuff, this currency basically allows for all these transactions to be settled. So for AI agents, especially, I see this as an upcoming future, and you can use fiat for any of these kind of settlements. For fast, seamless mode of payments and stuff for these agents to fulfill. I see Bitcoin or any of the other currencies as the only solution for this dilemma. But with that being said, I do believe that AI changed all of our lives in the most wonderful ways possible, whether it is creatorship or whether it is the gaming experience, which, as Peter mentioned, in the various forms where it adapts and stuff. The experience itself has been completely, before it was all about programming and logic. Now it's all about how this artificial intelligence adapts and then gives a better experience to these players based on how they are playing within these entertainment mediums. So, for instance, for us, we do have a couple of AI integrations, which is made for improving the player's gaming experience, which includes our upcoming rollout of our game build. So we have one of our product offering is an action RPG game, which has a lot of cultural aspects from Arabia. So you can think of like Prince of Persia kind of thing with Arabia and Persian elements. Now, this particular product of ours, which the game build is currently live on Epic Store and a few other launchers, this one has upcoming NPC characters. So AI NPC characters. What this does is, you play the game, you would have custom made quests based on how you interact with these NPCs. And that way, just by viewing a walkthrough on YouTube and stuff, you can expect to clear our game. You need to, because our gaming experience is completely unique, making the game infinitely replayable and unpredictable to a great extent. And the adoption and the building pipeline is, of course, goes without saying. I think this particular aspects of using AI for development was the most talked aspect in the last 2 years. Now the element of actual gaming experience is gaining more popularity. But this is just my point. But yeah, for development purpose, it has made indie game studios like us able to compete with AAA game titles without the budget, using smart tools to actually get that kind of results. So that's just my quick take. I can go on and on about it, but yeah.
I think what you say that's very interesting, right? So I think like when you think of sort of the big games and you look at you think of like off the top of my head, you know what, the name eludes me, but there's these big development studios, like years ago it was ID who did the Quake games and who did the Doom games and everything else, right? They were huge. Westwood Studios who did the Command and Conquers, all these big, and they were colossal, but some of them had shut down or had to merge with other studios just because the sheer cost of development was such. I guess in one way, what you're saying is AI from a different perspective, not from a consumer perspective, but from a development perspective. It's given you the tools, as you rightly say, to produce high quality products, experiences, etc. But do it in a way that's sustainable as a small independent developer. This essentially is opening up accessibility to this realm, development of games and so on and so forth. And it's just it's a different way of looking at it. That's why I love these podcasts, because different interpretations, different views, and all in all, essentially what we're doing by doing that is enriching the experience of the average user who is coming along saying, I want to play a game. They don't really mind who develops it as long as it fits their particular criteria, what they want. In terms of like the specific game you mentioned there, Faizy, I think I'm reminded of a book that I used to read. I used to go to the library and pick up these books, and what would happen is you'd read something, and then you had a selection. You could go to page 21, 35, 64, whatever, and it'd have an alternate event that occurs. And then again, you'd pick another. You'd say you can pick one of these options, go to another page. And it's, in essence, your game is also taking a similar approach. It's adaptive to the decisions that you make. So it's a unique tale and a unique story every time you play it. So it's a very exciting concept, and very excited to see it come to fruition. Very excited to play it as well. But bringing it back in, I think, Peter, you mentioned something earlier, and the next thing that I'd like to talk about it is in itself real world assets, and how real world assets combine with sort of the gaming universe. And I'd like to, similar to the question previously, but focusing more on this concept of ownership. How do you guys see ownership, the blockchain, and gaming in the future?
I think ownership is definitely one of the biggest use case of on-chain like utility. So bringing all these assets, whether it is character skins or even maps or whatever aspects within the game on chain, and having true ownership, that was pretty much the purpose. And that is in fact how the GameFi summer back in 2021 was a big thing, right? So I think this was actually demonstrated in such a flashy way by HAQQ and the rest of the games which came back in 2021, that even big giants in the gaming sector, in the Web2 gaming sector, started coming over to Web3 and even experimenting on things like that. I think recently, there was, not that recent, but around CSGO had one of the massive skin sale and stuff where they sold out millions in skins. It wasn't so much like a speculation as the NFT hype we had long back, but it was pretty good, as in the company earned revenue, the floor price was pretty stable. So there is clear use case of these aspects being on chain and being owned by users without the centralization aspect. And going forward, I see that it's not going to be just this part, which is already proved by the previous cycle. It will also extend to real world asset, which might stem to any physical toys or merchandise, which these assets might be linked to. There's plenty of projects which is already doing so. Pudgy, imaginary ones, and many more. So I think this is just going to take off even more. More brands are actually going to do it. I do not personally feel NFT hype is going to come back, but I do feel the RWA hype is going to be there, and gaming companies or entertainment companies in general, they're going to use that particular RWA aspect and then integrate it into their ecosystem in the manner I mentioned before. So yeah, that's just my thesis.
You're going on to the next part of the conversation there, Faizy. I'm going to be honest with you, but yeah, I mean, I hear what you're saying, and yeah, and I think that's something that very much like speaks to me. Like, years ago, let's say 10, 15 years ago, downloadable content. You paid for something, you got something on your hard drive. Um, you joined. Okay. You joined something, and sorry, forgive me. I'm not too sure. We're having some technical difficulties by the looks of it. So yes, you downloaded something, you played something, and then you had that content on your hard drive. But let's just say, I remember this old case I had, right? So I had an Xbox, the original Xbox, downloaded game data, the thing bricked, and then that was it. It was gone. I had paid quite a bit of money for some of the additional add-ons that were on that hard drive, on that computer, on that machine. But it obviously went. So what we have is this in this new world is this new concept of ownership, and it's powered by blockchain, which could be quite exciting going forwards. Peter, sorry, over to you. What do you think of this concept, real world assets and sort of gaming, blockchains?
Yeah, I mean, very similar thoughts. When we started in 2022, and even today, kind of we've staked our future on the idea of a fusion between physical and the digital world, right? So that's kind of been our major item. So I mean, obviously we're big believers in that, because it's kind of the entity that we are. And I think for RWAs overall, I mean, there's lots of, you look out like broader than the gaming ecosystem. There's a lot of really cool use cases out there, and I've worked with companies that do things with like carbon credits, or they've done some things in the real estate side, right? And fractional, and then all those different types of things on the blockchain, which I think are really interesting. But from a gaming perspective, I mean, there's so many games that are out there, right? Physical games, digital games, and to me, it's wild to not have this be at least an item for a game, especially because of the barriers to entry, as we talked about, in the last question, for indie developers being pretty low, right? In terms of what's happened with AI and the ability to come in, create games, get those insights, learn player behavior, and start to create it. I think it's something like 90%, 85, 90% of all the Web3 games that were made last year were indie developers, right? So the big trend that's happening is that it's more accessible, and you're having more of the smaller studios able to actually create viable products that are playable. And then, obviously working on the integration side into the blockchain end of it. But when you have, a niche audience, let's take any type of game that you could think of. We've worked with billiards games and larger games like football and workout apps and, any type of little card game or checkers game you could imagine, right? Those are all opportunities and games that we've worked with. But, taking something that you're physically playing or being rewarded something that's physically, that is a strong tie-in, whether it's merchandise, whether it is the pudgy penguin, right? Whether it is something that you can show status to, be rewarded for. These are all strong motivators. And it takes, again, the model of just playing a game to be entertained, which for the record should be the key component, right? If you have a boring game or game that sucks, it's like glitches everywhere, that's a non-starter. But from a playable game perspective, as long as it's fun and it's entertaining, okay, check one. What else are we doing to make this more rewarding and more meaningful? And I think this is such a strong tie-in, right? And again, it increases retention, it increases the ability to come back and purchase. And for players, you're having more of this ownership model. You're being not just someone that's consuming and being thrown away when the game ends. It's something, you're a part of the community, you're a part of the ecosystem, you're a part of this game, right? It's a fundamental shift from, oh, I'm just going to play to be entertained, to I can win something out of this. I can be rewarded outside of just the in-game coins. I can be a part of this game's future. And that's just, yeah, again, fundamentally different than anything that we've seen, previously in the gaming industry.
Yeah, absolutely. And what I take from there in particular, fellas, is this concept of enjoyment, right? There is this concept of enjoyment. I play a game because I've had a long day at work. I've, done something around the house, whatever. I'm now going to unwind. Therefore, I want to be entertained. I want to have enjoyment. I want, that quality time for me. And I guess this takes it, as you say, this gives you ownership of that quality time in some ways. I look back to games that I downloaded on my phone, for example. The ones that I really came back to quite often, more often than not, were the ones where I had paid for them, predominantly because I played for them. I might have clocked them, clocked used as, the traditional size of I've played the game and finished it. But I'll go back to it maybe a few months later because I was entertained, I enjoyed it, I owned it because I paid for it. So I think there's that sort of synergy. I think a good place to go from here, right? A good place to go from here is, how do you think the blockchain model, Web3 gaming broadly, can create an economic environment, who can create like a financial economic environment within sort of gaming and within sort of blockchain and Web3 more broadly?
You want to talk tokenomics?
Let's talk economics, but let's put it this way, right? So let's say I have an NFT that I paid $60 for. And I now own that NFT. I paid $60. $60 now sits with Astra Nova, WPL, and I have an NFT for the thing. A commerce has occurred here. I own this because I paid you. So there's an economy forming here, isn't there? Because there's people, there's an exchange of money for assets. Now, that might not be under the traditional sense where, I pay and, there's downloadable content that goes to my hard drive, but my wallet on HAQQ network or whatever owns this NFT, which gives me the right to use the skin in a game, to use a particular item in a game. So I'm curious to see what your thoughts are on how, Web3 can create this sort of economy.
Yeah, are you more on the? Is this more on like the gaming side, particularly with this example you mentioned?
Yeah. I'm just saying, like, because I think with sort of the crypto world, there's a lot of bleeding here, right? There's a lot of concepts and things that are colliding together and creating new environments. So traditionally, the concept of ownership, I guess, from my perspective, what I'm saying is this: when I used to play Steam, when I used to use Steam, or I used to use another engine to play my game, I would pay Steam and I would have a license to use that software. That would land in my code, but I never owned it. I paid for a license to use that game. Now, if I pay, Astra Nova for a particular function, if I pay World Player League for a particular item, I'm paying you money and creating an economy there, aren't I? I'm paying you money. I'm gaining something in the background. So, in essence, it's creating an economy between projects and between individuals. To take it one step further, let's just say an environment was created on a particular network that, whatever the network is, where I could take that NFT that has value. It has real value. I could take and borrow against that, which has real value.
Mm-hmm. Right.
It is creating, isn't it, an economy? It is creating a form of commerce.
Right. Most definitely. I think these digital assets of all forms, NFTs, whether it is even tokens, it does provide a layer to incentivize the users, which is being part of our ecosystem, our community. And these are all great ways and mechanisms for creating that financial system within each project. But the problem with that is many projects, especially, they fail to find a balance. Whether it's over rewarding or it's under rewarding. That sweet spot is what gets the right equilibrium so that it doesn't crash like what happened in the Axie's case with their tokens failing and stuff. Unfortunately, in our industry especially, the token price really does have that, the sentiments do tie down with the project's outlook. So as long as the project and these assets, which I mentioned, these digital assets are doing well, really great. The sentiments are great, but otherwise it does tie the project down. I mean, that's one of the drawbacks in Web3 projects. But I do think that even this will be overcome with strong products, which projects can showcase. But if it is a very strong project, then of course even the token will have that positive rebound. But yeah, that's just my take. For us, we took a lot of care when we built our economy. We consulted both uh, game and token economists for curating our tokenomics, and we came to the conclusion of how to do the business in various business models, which caters to a wide segment of users, including subscription model for like battle pass being utilized, and also other more Web3 native revenue streams, such as transaction fees and stuff on every transaction which happens in our marketplace or even our platform, similar to how various widespread platforms like Pump Fund monetizes. So keeping that in mind, we were able to keep that balance of both the gaming aspect and also the Web3 degens. They don't like when we keep huge prices on things, and if it's more volatility and stuff, then the Web3 folks usually steer away. So yeah, I mean, we don't. At the end of the day, every project, I think, they're looking for more long-time users, and that LTV is what matters. So we believe that our economics and all the ecosystem is designed in such a way for more long-term sustainability over short-term hype.
Absolutely, and I think that's key, isn't it? It's that sort of synergy that between parties. I mean, you mentioned transaction fees. That's another aspect of an economy that's been created that I didn't otherwise think of. And you can do various things with that. You can stimulate your own economy. You can develop your own company. It's a different way of doing things, and I think it's very important to embrace that in terms of the accessibility it gives you. I use the word accessibility quite a lot when I talk about Web3 because I think that is one of sort of the cornerstones of what we can do. You can be sat in Indonesia, you can be in Canada, you can be in sort of Argentina, you can be sat in the UK. It doesn't matter where you are. Across the world, you could be literally anywhere, but you can access these games and these services and so on and so forth. So that's very exciting. Peter, what do you think in terms of this discussion of an economy being built?
I mean, I love the conversation. I could talk for an hour on it, but I think that to break it down, right? Like perception is reality, right? And what I mean by this in this context of this conversation is value can mean lots of things to different players and to different people, right? Like what is value? How do we create it? And a lot of it when we have these conversations is tied to money, right? And I think one of the problems that occurs, and I've worked with many game studios, many people that just launch tokens, but especially game studios, is we are tied ourselves to, let's say, a token price, right? We say, well, we look at all these FDVs, look at all these market caps. We could do this. And so the game could do this and this and this, and this will all raise the price, right? And we're so focused on what is the price of this token that was created. But I think we really have to take a step back, right? And say, A, did this need to be created in the first place, right? And even a step further than that is, is this something that we're providing value to our players for, right? And then from the player's perspective, am I getting a part of something that I actually enjoy, right? So, and I know that sounds really basic, but it really gets lost in all these conversations about the monetization, about the pricing, and we get into tokens, and we get into NFTs, right? Sometimes just add tokens, or we saw a lot of projects add NFTs and they're going to be this and that, and we're going to focus on the floor price and all these things where, listen, at the end of the day, a lot of games survive just well without this because they're enjoyable, because they're fun, because the community, there's a great community inside of it. And I've seen a lot of great games and a lot of great platforms, not so much have it based on, oh, it's going to go up this amount of dollars in price, but you have access to this community. You have this recognition in this community, in this group. And that for a lot of different people is enough, it is for me. When I started playing, it wasn't because I thought I was going to win $5 or $10. It's because I found people that I actually enjoyed talking about strategy with or playing the game with, right? And so if you start there, I know it sounds really simple, but I think if you start at that fundamental, which is, do I have people that enjoy this, or I solved a problem for someone, right? Or whatever that happens to be. Then from there, it is a lot easier to then attach more value or to add something of value and then put a price to that, right? Because then you have people that already have shown a want and a desire for it. But if you just create a game with the idea that, oh, I'm going to create this token and then you're going to do this with it, and then eventually it's going to go up because we're going to add this to it, I think that's flawed thinking, right? When we talk specifically about games, the mechanics, the game, the flow, the experience all has to be on point. And then from there, yes, you can have this in mind, whether it's an NFT, whether it's one of these assets that we're talking about, or if it's a token, sure. But adding that into it and enhancing the experience or providing value, ownership, monetization is there. But I think a lot of that, honestly, you lose sight of it. The price will come, right? If you build it, they will come. If you build it and it's solid, the price will come. Meaning people will gravitate to something, especially if it's scarce, if it provides something that no one else have, exclusivity, or if they do think eventually it will go up in price. Everyone's speculating, right? All of us are gamblers in crypto. Every single one of us, if we're involved in tokens, we're all saying, hey, this is going to go up because eventually, right? So that still can occur, and it should, and I think it's a great thing overall. I'm not talking bad about that. What I am saying though is that if there isn't strong foundation, right? You can talk tokenomics as a foundation, you can talk utility as a foundation, or you can just talk value. What value am I providing to whatever this asset is that will eventually, in the long term, right? As Faizy mentioned, right? What's that LTV? In the long term, this will work out for me because it's structured the right way.
Yeah. Well, and that's where we come back to fundamentals. I mean, and gambling for me, generally, when I hear gambling, it's a case of, look, it could go any way, it could do this, it could do that. Mm-hmm. And reality, market forces are factual. Market forces are factual. If they decide, you can just see what's happened in the last month, 2 months. The most insane things happen, and the market's super sensitive. That's just where we are in reality. But I think, as you say, there's this idea of fundamentals. Are the fundamentals there? Is there something here that's built to last? Does it have a good business model? Does it have, what is there something that will actually give value? Is there real value being accrued there? And will that accrete to users and, to people who are involved? So I completely agree with that. Gents, I want to ask you to get out your crystal balls now. And I want you to gaze far into the future and let me know, what do you think the gaming industry has in store for us? The Web3 gaming industry, what does it have in store for us over the next 1, 3, 5 years? Over this cycle, let's just say over this cycle, what do you think is going to happen?
I feel that the Web3 gaming is going through a full reset with more quality products coming into the picture. And that's, clearly evident with studios like Godzilla putting Off the Grid and many other projects of that caliber out there. People are surprised that, now Web3 game studios can create such quality games, because this wasn't so common back then when that craze was there 4 or 5 years ago. So people are starting to take notice. Web2 creators are, taking notice. They are pushing such kind of projects. So I think that, and really big creators like Sonyum and all those are coming with amazing ideas to push. Big publishers, Ubisoft, all of these guys are watching. They're building. So there is a clear alignment for multiple people betting on this future. It just waiting for, and I think I 100% think that the AAA gaming giants are already, they're done, or they're out of cards at the moment. They tried pulling all the stuff, but now people are kind of losing interest because it's a repetitive franchisee of stuff. Nothing new being developed. Anything new which is being developed is usually by indie game studios. as you can see with the stats, which clearly shows a lot of gamers loving the fact that the indie game studios are going for something not common. And I think that not common and that black sheep is Web3 games. And the first movers, which really do capture with a quality game and the right kind of go to market strategy, is definitely going to create a benchmark for our industry. So last time we had like mass onboarding with kind of like a play to earn model, but this time we will have a mass onboarding, hopefully, with a quality game standing in the front in the picture, and people don't even realize it's a Web3 game because it's so seamless. The assets, the way things are created, they don't know the underlying technology. People like us might know. We're nerds, but not the average Joe. So I think that's what's going to happen, and yeah, that's my outlook on this.
Yeah, very interesting take, and I do agree. I mean, if you look at if we use like sort of big broad stereotypes, right, and you look at all what the sort of mainstream traditional gaming entities are doing, they're regurgitating things that are of the similar ilk. Really, they're not doing anything sort of unique, something that's like, oh well, this is brand new. This is like, imagine when they did the first Star Wars game, or they did the first football game, or the first, Empire Earth was a game that I used to really love. And now, you have Civilizations, and they did Civilizations 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 million. I don't know where they're up to now, to be fair. But there isn't really, through the mainstream, something that's coming out. Like, you could argue Far Cry, Quake, Doom, Duke Nukem, go as back into history as you want. They're the same thing. It's a fellow with a gun who's running around shooting people, right? That's what it is. That there is nothing novel or interesting about it. Yeah, the storylines are a bit different, one else, but there isn't something like unique. And you're right; these independent studios, like yourselves, that are all coming about. There's an opportunity when you're using AI, as we we're talking about before, and the concept of real assets, to create a new market, a new place to exist, and a new thing to grow. So that's very exciting. Peter, over to you. Crystal ball, what do you see happening?
Yeah, I mean, I share similar thoughts. What I would say is, to provide context, we are where we are today for a reason, right? It hasn't gone as far as maybe some of us that have been involved in the space have wanted to, but it's all, we had a lot of development challenges, integration, on ramp, off ramps, a lot of scams, a lot of overhyped NFT drops that all failed. It all happened, right? And we're better for it because we come out of it, right? But I do think now, going back to the first question you asked, and now back to this one, AI is going to play a huge part of this. And because of what's available on the development side, because of the research that can be done, even the game building, like, I don't think in the next, let's say 5 years, it would be crazy to say or make a prediction that, the biggest Web3 game story, maybe the biggest, title that we're all talking about in 5 years is developed by no one, right? The biggest development studio doesn't have a developer, right? It doesn't, this indie studio that came out of nowhere has one person, right? We're already seeing that in the traditional space where you've seen companies that are trying to approach unicorn status with one-person teams, which is unheard of years ago. Unheard of. Growth has always been, tied to how many people in your team do you have. I think that's an outdated model. So I think in 5 years, it's going to be a 1 or 2 person indie game studio has the biggest game, that year, has the biggest title. And it'll be on Web3. It'll be AI, will be, expansive worlds people are contributing to. I think there's lots of precedent for this that's already occurring. But, I look in the traditional space, not crypto, but if you look at other industries as an example, biggest car company in the world doesn't own any cars. Biggest real estate company in the world doesn't own any real estate, right? Talking Airbnb and Uber. Right? The gaming industry is evolving at that clip where if you look at how things are made, how we tie into networks and the blockchain, how people build on top of it, it's why everybody wants to invest in chains right now. If you're an investor, no one wants to invest in individual games. You all want to have a gaming chain. I get it, right? There's going to be more games coming up. And because we're seeing less drop off with indie game studios, right? There's less of building, but everyone's retaining. They're not dropping off. They're not dropping their titles. So what's happening is people are perfecting this. They're staying relevant. They're solvent. They're not disbanding, and we're getting smarter. And I think this technology is going to make this even smarter. And a 1-2 person shop is going to take, like a Flappy Bird model or a Candy Crush. Right? These are not big concepts, right? To try to say, oh, this is a new concept for a gaming title, but taking something like this on chain that has strong economics behind it, that you're providing value to an initial niche audience, letting that expand, you're going to have $1 billion plus valuation of a company. It's going to be 1 or 2 people running it.
I don't want to say it's an existential threat to traditional model of gaming and game development, rather, but it's a stark warning for what the future holds. If as you say, these individuals you can do, and you're right, games are changing. The more elaborate games, are they as popular as they used to be? Do people want to play these sort of complicated, more nuanced, more intricate? Do they want just that easy turn up, play something and get it off your chest? The example I think of right now is, I don't know if you two gentlemen have ever come across this game before, but it was called Homeworld. It was by Sierra. Now, I played that game loads, Homeworld 1, Homeworld 2, Homeworld Cataclysm, and then the series stopped. I mean, I think they've made a third game in the last however long it is. But then someone released this sort of, just like an upgrade, if you want to call it that. And it was so complicated, it was unreal. Don't get me wrong, really enjoyed playing it because I like the complexity. But I think about it now, at the age I'm at now, with what I'm doing right now, and I don't think I'd have the animus to be able to play that game. What I want to do is just be able to go spend 10, 15 minutes, half an hour, have a really good time, and get back on with my life. So, it's interesting where we're heading. But, gentlemen, thank you both for your views on this. We'll no doubt over the next 3, 4, 5 years, it'll be interesting to see where, GameFi within the Web3 space continues. Just before we conclude, I want to chuck it out there, and I want to ask you for any parting thoughts, any conclusionary thoughts you might have for the people that are listening, and slightly more pertinently, people who may listen over the coming days, weeks, and so on.
Yeah, I'll go parting thoughts. I'm going to follow up on my last comment because it might have sounded scary, right? If $1 billion company is made by one person. What I do think within that is parting thoughts is that it's not all going to go to one person. The value is driven within the game. And so that's a lot of just average, normal players that are receiving revenue, income, ownership based off that model. So I ultimately do think it's a good thing because it's decentralized and it goes to the masses. I'm a purist, but I do want to say that. Outside of that, I think it's what we already touched on, right? If you're building, keep building and build something that matters to someone, right? Not just to yourself. Build to an audience of 10, 20 people that are really, really devoted and excited about it. Because if you can find 20 people or 30 people that are really excited about your game, that's easy to find more of, right? So if you're building, build for that niche audience and it'll only go up from there. And I think for people that are just interested in Web3 gaming, there are a lot of good titles that have come out, that are coming out. I would say stay involved because, again, we're very bullish on all of it. So we're excited, about the future of WPL and myself personally. And I think that use technology to your advantage. It's not going away, and use it for that growth and to help you, as you accelerate.
Super duper. Thanks, Peter. Faizy, over to you. Any parting thoughts?
Yeah, I think it was a great discussion. We went through so many different aspects of AI, gaming assets, and the future of even Web3 gaming. With that being said, I would say our space has definitely evolved from what it was like when it was in 2015 and stuff. We had like a couple of hundred coins. There's so many thousands of coins out there. Millions, of coins out there, and things have definitely changed. Builders who are actually building genuine products with proper use cases, I would say stick with what the value offerings, like Peter mentioned earlier, and also take advantage of what's out there. It's out there for a reason. Further aspects of whether you do not believe in the future of AI and stuff, it's a bummer because it's definitely going to take over, and better to be early than sorry, right? So That's just my few words. And yeah, this year is going to be an amazing bullish year. I know we're getting a relief rally right now, but this is nothing. We're going to see a rally like no other. That's what I believe. All season is coming, and we're not even ready for it. It's going to be so huge. Damn, I sound like Trump now.
But
But yeah, I love it.
what I'll say is, inshallah to what you say, but as ever, guys, this is not financial advice in any way. Make sure to consult a relevant financial advisor for any financial and investment advice. We're all very excited for what the gaming world has to offer. We're very excited for what the future has to offer. I'm really excited to be partnered with Astra Nova and World Play League, and I'm really excited to see where this goes in the future. On that note, I just want to say thank you one and all for listening. Thank you one and all for participating in this space. Faizy, Peter, Faizy, thank you both, gentlemen, for taking time out what I'm sure is extremely busy days to take your time and come to speak to us here. I hope to hear your voice again in the future, whether it's here or on other podcasts. And long may your projects, grow and flourish. From myself and from the team here, thank you very much to the listeners as well for listening. When you see this, please be sure to share, like, and retweet so other people can actually see this and they can participate and hear what everyone's had to say. So from my side, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you very much for one and all. Allah Hafiz.